My name is Lauren Avery. I'm 32 years old, and the day my lung collapsed was not the worst part of my surgery. The worst part was realizing who didn't pick up the phone. The surgery had been on the calendar for 3 weeks. Routine stuff, according to the surgeon: gallbladder removal, laparoscopic. In and out, he'd said, like he was talking about an oil change and not carving parts out of my body. I told my family the details like I was reading off a weather report. Mom, Dad, Stacy, Jake. It's June 15th, early morning. I should be in recovery by noon. Mom said, "Okay, sweetie, keep us posted," in the same tone she used when I told her my car needed an oil change. Dad glanced up from his phone. "You don't need someone there for that, right? It's routine." My older sister Stacy chimed in from the other end of the group call. I could practically hear her scrolling. "You'll be fine, Lore. It's laparoscopic, right? My friend had that. She was walking around the next day." "Yeah," I said. "Quick recovery." My younger brother Jake texted instead of calling, a string of messages popping up after. "Good luck, sis. I've got a meeting at 9 o'clock, but I'll check in later." And that was that. Only one person treated it like it might actually be serious. Liam. My boyfriend of 3 years stared at me over the kitchen island, hands wrapped around his coffee mug. "June 15th is when I'm supposed to fly to Houston," he said slowly. "We're rolling out the new project that week, but I can move it. I'll be there." His instinct was to rearrange his life. Mine was to minimize. "Babe, no," I said. "We need that bonus. It's literally a day procedure. My family will be on standby. You'll just sit in a waiting room all day, bored out of your mind." He didn't look convinced. "Lore, I don't like the idea of you going in alone." "I'm not alone," I lied. "They'll be on their phones, and you'll call me when you land. It's fine." If I'd known how much I'd regret that sentence, I'd have swallowed it instead. June 15th, 7 a.m. I drove myself to St. Mary's, the sky just starting to lighten. The hospital parking lot was half empty, the air sharp with that weird mix of cut grass and exhaust. Inside, the woman at the front desk smiled at me over her computer. "Name? Lauren Avery, gallbladder surgery at 8. She tapped a few keys, printed a plastic bracelet, and slid it toward me. "Is someone waiting with you in the family area?" I hesitated for half a second too long. "No, it's just me," I said. "It's routine." Something shifted in her eyes. Sympathy, or maybe pity. "Well, we'll take good care of you." I changed into the thin hospital gown, folded my clothes into a plastic bag, and watched a nurse tape the IV line to my arm. The fluorescent lights made everything look too bright, too sharp, like the world was overexposed and I was underprepared. Another nurse came by with a clipboard. "Okay, Lauren," she said, cheerful, efficient. "We're doing a standard laparoscopic cholecystectomy today. You'll be under general anesthesia for about an hour, then recovery for 2 to 3 hours before we send you home." "Sounds good," I said. My voice sounded far away, even to me. "And you have someone picking you up?" "Yeah," I lied again. "I'll figure it out." She paused just long enough for me to notice, then made a note on the clipboard. At 8:15, they wheeled my bed into pre-op. The room hummed with low conversations and the beeping of machines. I pulled out my phone with my free hand. Family group chat, Avery Circus. "Going in now. Love you all." Hearts. 3 check marks appeared almost instantly. Red. No replies. I stared at the screen, waiting for a simple, "You got this," or even a thumbs up emoji. Nothing. The anesthesiologist walked up and saved me from the silence. Older guy, soft edges around his eyes. "Ready, Lauren?" "As I'll ever be." "You're going to feel a little cold sensation when I start the medication. Then you'll wake up and it'll be over." "Okay." He adjusted somethings on my IV. The ceiling blurred, the edges of my vision curling inward. "See you on the other side," he said. Everything went black. I woke up to chaos. Not the quiet, groggy recovery I'd rehearsed in my head, but movement and urgent voices. My chest felt wrong, like someone had parked a truck on it and then sat on the truck. I tried to inhale and got nothing. Air bounced off something inside me and refused to go further. "I can't breathe." The words came out as a broken whisper. A nurse leaned over me, blonde ponytail swinging. "Lauren, can you hear me?" "Can't breathe." Her expression changed. She hit a button on the wall. "I need a doctor in here now." More people rushed in. Green scrubs, blue scrubs, name tags that blurred together. An oxygen mask pressed over my nose and mouth. I sucked at it like a drowning person grabbing at a branch, but the pressure in my chest didn't move. A doctor appeared beside me. Gray hair, Steady hands. He listened to my chest, moving the stethoscope from one side to the other. Decreased breath sounds on the left. Get me a portable x-ray, stat. They propped me up just enough to slide a cold plate behind my back. Someone told me not to move, as if I could. Pain radiated through my shoulder, my ribs, my spine. The x-ray machine beeped. The doctor stared at the images on a tablet, his jaw tightening. He stepped back to my side. Lauren, you have a pneumothorax. Your left lung has collapsed. The words didn't fit together. What? It's a rare complication from the anesthesia, he said. Sometimes the ventilation pressure during surgery can cause this. We need to act quickly. What do you need to do? Insert a chest tube to drain the air compressing your lung. It will let your lung re-expand so you can breathe properly. Will it hurt? The local anesthetic will help, but you'll feel pressure. Pressure. Doctor code for this is going to suck. Do you have family here? He asked. I thought of Mom's voice saying, keep us posted. Of Stacy's, you'll be fine. Of Jake's, I'll check in later. No, I croaked. They couldn't come. His expression softened just a fraction. Okay, we'll take good care of you. While they prepped a tray of instruments, gleaming metal that looked vaguely medieval, I reached for my phone with shaking fingers. Family group chat, I typed with my thumb. Something went wrong. They said my lung collapsed. I'm scared. Sent. 3 check marks. Read. Still nothing. I started calling. Mom, ringing, voicemail. Mom, it's me. Something's wrong. They said my lung collapsed. I'm really scared. Please call me back. Dad, ringing, voicemail. Dad, I'm in recovery. There's a complication. Please pick up. Stacy, ringing, voicemail. Stace, I need you to answer. Please, I can't breathe. Jake, ringing, voicemail. Jake, it's Lauren. Please, just call me. I called again and again and again. By the time the nurse gently pried the phone from my hand, my call log showed 32 outgoing calls, 32 attempts, 0 answers. Lauren, the kind nurse murmured, her hand warm on my arm. We need to start. I set the phone face down on the tray beside me. The screen lit up with every failed attempt, a taunting strobe. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I'm sure they'll call back soon. I didn't believe her, but I appreciated the lie. The needle burned as the local anesthetic seeped under my skin, between my ribs. Deep breath, the doctor said. I tried. The effort sent lightning bolts of pain through my chest. Okay, incision now. I felt the cut, sharp, hot, followed by a spreading fire. Then the awful, pushing pressure as he inserted the tube between my ribs, forcing it into the space where my lungs should have been fully inflated. I gripped the bed rail until my knuckles went white, tasting blood where I'd bitten down on my lip. Almost there, he said. That word almost stretched into something endless. Then suddenly, a release. Like someone cracked open a window inside my chest. Air rushed in. The crushing weight lifted just enough to let me breathe. Good, the doctor said, voice calmer now. The tube is in. We'll keep you for a few days to monitor the lung. Okay. Is there anyone we can call for you? I looked at my phone screen. Mom, 14 calls. Dad, 9. Stacy, 6. Jake, 3. Total 32 unanswered calls. No, I said, there's nobody. They moved me to a private room, a small Mercy. The chest tube drained into a clear container by the bed, each bubble a reminder of how close the air had come to killing me. Every breath hurt. Every movement hurt. My phone sat on the bedside table, screen dark. At 6 o'clock p.m., I finally picked it up. The family group chat still showed my morning message. Going in now, love you all. Read at 8:17 a.m. No responses. I opened Instagram, hating myself even as I tapped the app. Stacy's profile loaded instantly. Bright photos, curated life. At 10:45 a.m., she'd posted a beach picture. Sunrise waves, her in a bikini with a flower crown. Caption, phone-free day. Sometimes you just need to disconnect. Self-care vibes. While I was gasping for air and begging my family to pick up, my sister was announcing to the world that she was phone-free. My thumb hovered over the screen, scrolling. 11:30 a.m. Another photo. Stacy and 3 friends, matching swimsuits, laughing. Best day ever with my girls. Squad goals. 2 p.m. A video of her jumping into waves. This is what freedom feels like. At 2 p.m., they were threading a tube between my ribs. I turned the phone face down and stared at the ceiling until the tiles blurred. An older nurse with gray hair came in to check my vitals. How's the pain? She asked. Manageable, I lied. Her eyes flicked to the empty chair by my bed. No visitors today? No. Tomorrow? Probably not. She made a note on her chart, then looked at me for a long moment. Well, she said softly, we'll take good care of you. You just focus on healing. That night, I couldn't sleep. The chest tube pulled with every movement. The room hummed with distant monitors and hallway footsteps. My phone glowed on the table like a tiny moon. I picked it up and opened the family chat. I'm okay. Lung collapse, but they fixed it. I'll be here for a few days. Send. 3 check marks. Read immediately. 5 minutes. 10. 15. Nothing. I turned the phone off. Day 2. Nurses came and went, adjusted the tube, brought me meals I pushed around the tray. At 10 a.m., my phone rang. I grabbed it so fast my chest screamed. Mom! Hi, I said, voice already cracking. Lauren, I saw your message. Are you okay? My message from last night, 16 hours ago. I'm okay now. My lung collapsed in recovery. They had to put a tube in my chest. Oh my goodness, that sounds scary. It was. I'm sorry I didn't answer, she said. I had my phone on silent. I was at book club, and you know how Martha gets if anyone's phone goes off. Her book club, while I called her 14 times from a hospital bed. Stacy was at the beach, I said, unable to scrape the bitterness out of my voice. Yes, she's been planning that trip for months. She needed the break. Work has been so stressful for her. Stressful, I repeated. I called her 6 times, Mom. Well, she said she was doing a phone-free day for her mental health. You know how important that is. I was in the hospital with a collapsed lung. But you're okay now, right? That's what matters. I stared at the wall, chest aching for reasons that had nothing to do with tubes and stitches. When are they releasing you? She asked. 2 or 3 more days. That's good. Very thorough. Her voice brightened. Well, I'm glad you're okay. I need to run. I'm meeting Susan for lunch, but I'll check in later, okay? Love you, sweetie. She hung up before I could decide what to say. I sat there holding the silent phone, feeling more alone than I had when the room was empty. Day 4. Discharge day. The doctor checked my x-ray and nodded. Lung looks good. We'll take the tube out and send you home. Removing the tube hurt in a different, ripping way, like someone was unplugging a piece of me from the inside. But then it was gone, and I could breathe without plastic scraping against my ribs. The discharge nurse handed me a stack of papers. Is someone picking you up? No, I said. I'll call an Uber. You really shouldn't be alone tonight, she frowned. The anesthesia can still affect you, and with the chest tube just removed, I'll be fine. She didn't look convinced, but she couldn't conjure a family out of thin air. I called an Uber, went home, and collapsed into bed. I slept 14 hours straight, waking up sore and disoriented. 7 unread texts buzzed at the top of my screen. Mom, glad you're home safe. Rest up. Hearts. Stacy, heard you're out. Feeling better? Mom said it was pretty serious. Let me know if you need anything. Dad, home safe? Good. Take it easy. Jake, you good, sis? Hit me up when you're feeling better. I didn't respond to any of them. 2 weeks passed. I went back to work. My coworkers brought me coffee, asked if I needed help carrying anything, hovered more than I needed, but exactly as much as I'd secretly wanted from my family. The family group chat stayed weirdly quiet. No one asked how the scar felt when I breathed too deep. No one asked if I still woke up some nights thinking I was suffocating. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, as I was finally getting through my inbox, my phone buzzed with a notification. St. Mary's Hospital tagged you in a new post. I stared at it, a prickle moving up my spine. I had no idea that one tag was about to flip my entire family upside down. The hospital's post was under a series called Miracle Monday. It was a photo of me in the recovery room, hair flattened, eyes a little dazed, a tired smile on my face. One of the nurses must have snapped it when I was trying to prove I was okay. The caption made my throat close. 2 weeks ago, Lauren came in for routine gallbladder surgery. During recovery, she experienced a spontaneous pneumothorax, a collapsed lung. It's a rare and serious complication requiring immediate intervention. Lauren stayed calm, worked with our team, and faced it completely alone. Today, she's fully recovered and back to her life. We're proud to share this story of resilience and courage. There it was, in one sentence, faced it completely alone. The post already had a few hundred likes, a thread of comments. Wow, so brave. I can't imagine going through that without family. She's a warrior. I read them all, my thumb moving even when my brain wanted to look away. Compliments felt like they were aimed at a stranger wearing my face. I almost closed the app. That tiny, spiteful part of me whispered, Let them think you had nobody. It's not like your family acted differently. Then I saw it. A comment from someone named Jennifer K. Wait, isn't this Stacey Morrison's sister? I follow Stacey on Instagram. Pretty sure she was posting beach pics that day. My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. Another comment appeared under it a minute later. OMG, you're right. I just checked the dates. June 15th. She was posting phone-free day while her sister's lung collapsed. More followed like dominoes. Yikes, that's messed up. Phone-free day. But for what reason, exactly? Imagine ignoring your sister's emergency calls for content. I watched, frozen, as people did what the internet does best, dig. Someone screenshotted my hospital photo with the timestamp and put it side by side with Stacey's phone-free beach day post from 10:45 a.m. The picture looked ridiculous together. On the left, me, pale, oxygen tubing visible under my nose. On the right, Stacey, tanned, beaming in a bikini with a flower crown, caption, preaching self-care. Within hours, the hospital post was shared hundreds of times. By the next day, it had thousands of likes, hundreds of comments, and at least one local news site had picked it up. Local hospital shares inspiring recovery story of woman who faced life-threatening complication alone. They interviewed the doctor, the nurses. They called me. I almost said no. Then I thought about staring at the ceiling while my phone lit up with nothing but my own failed calls. The reporter's voice was warm, practiced. Were you scared, Lauren? Yeah, I said, really scared. Did you have support? I paused. I could have lied. I could have smoothed it over. I had the hospital staff, I said. They were incredible. And your family? They were busy. That was all I said. I didn't give names. I didn't mention Stacey. I didn't say beach or book club or Home Depot. But the internet didn't need me to connect the dots. It was already way ahead. The article went live that afternoon. By evening, it had 50,000 views. By the next morning, over 200,000. Someone made a slick TikTok about it, splitting the screen between my hospital photo and Stacey's phone-free post. The audio was just a phone ringing. Over and over, no answer. I was at my tiny kitchen table eating cereal for dinner, partly because I still couldn't lift heavy pots, partly because everything else felt too complicated, when my phone rang. Stacey. I stared at her name for a second, then swiped to answer. Hey. She didn't bother with hello. Lauren, what did you do? I set the spoon down. Good evening to you too, Stace. The hospital post, the article, that stupid TikTok. Everyone's seeing it. People are commenting about me. Her voice was pitched high with panic. I didn't post anything, I said. The hospital did a feature. I answered 2 questions. You could have told them not to. Why would I do that? Because it's making me look horrible. There it was. Not you almost died. Not, I'm sorry I wasn't there. Just my image, my reputation, my life. Stacey, I said slowly, you posted beach photos with a phone-free caption while your sister was in the hospital with a collapsed lung. That's what's making you look horrible, not me. She made a strangled sound. That's not fair. I didn't know it was serious. I left you 6 voicemails saying my lung collapsed and I couldn't breathe. Silence. You didn't listen to them, did you? I asked. I was trying to disconnect, she snapped. For my mental health. You know how burnt out I've been. On the day of my surgery that you knew about. She wasn't supposed to post that, Stacey hissed, ignoring it. That line about you facing it alone? People are using it against me. The line is true, I said. I was alone. You're making me look like a monster. I didn't mention you, Stacey. The internet put your Instagram next to the hospital's post. You did that, with timestamps. She sucked in a sharp breath. This is ruining my life. I thought of the chest tube sliding between my ribs, of 32 calls going to voicemail, of the nurse's pitying eyes. Yeah, I said softly. Consequences tend to do that. I hate you, she blurted. No, you hate that people know what you did. She hung up. I sat there with the dial tone humming in my ear, then went back to eating cereal. My hands were shaking, so I switched to eating with my fingers, crunching dry flakes between my teeth just to have something to focus on. The next day, my phone lit up again. Mom, Lauren, you need to fix this. No hello, no how are you. Fix what? This vendetta, this campaign against your sister, people are being vicious to her online. I'm not doing anything, I said. I didn't post the hospital story. I didn't share the article. I didn't make any TikToks. I gave one short interview and said the staff was incredible and my family was busy, which you were. People are tagging Stacey, digging through her posts, calling her heartless. Did she answer my calls? I asked. That's not the point. It's exactly the point. Your sister is getting harassed at work, Mom insisted. Her coworkers are talking. Her boss saw it. She might lose her promotion. Do you understand what that does to a woman's career? Something snapped then, quietly, like a cable finally giving way after years of strain. Mom, I said, where were you on June 15th? She hesitated. We've been over this. I was at book club. And my phone calls? My phone was on silent. I told you Martha doesn't allow. So book club rules were more important than answering the phone when your daughter called 14 times from a hospital bed saying she couldn't breathe. That's not fair, she whispered. I left voicemail after voicemail, I said, telling you my lung collapsed, telling you I was scared. You didn't check them until later. That's not fair. On the other end, I heard her exhale. We didn't know it would get this big. Mom, this isn't about it going big. It's about it being true. I want you to ask the hospital to take it down, she said. For Stacy's sake, for all our sakes. We're being judged based on one misunderstanding. One day, I corrected, one exposed day. The misunderstanding was mine. I thought I mattered enough to be worth picking up for. Lauren, I'm not calling anyone, I said. If you don't like how it looks, maybe ask yourself why it looks that way. I hung up before she could answer. Meanwhile, the internet did what the internet does best. It kept going. By Wednesday, the Hospital Post had over 3,000 shares. Some local influencer drama account picked it up, framing it as the dark side of performative self-care. The narrative was simple and brutal. Woman preaches phone-free self-care while ignoring desperate calls from her hospitalized sister. Stacy's life, the life she'd curated and filtered and captioned, started collapsing faster than my lung had. At her office downtown, things shifted. I only know the details because one of her coworkers, Ashley, eventually started following me and, in some cosmic twist, we became friendly. In the break room that Wednesday morning, Stacy was making coffee when Ashley walked in. Hey, Stacy, can I ask you something? Stacy smiled automatically. Sure, what's up? Ashley held up her phone, screen glowing. Is this your sister? It was the article, my hospital photo, the story about the collapsed lung, the line about me facing it alone. Stacy's smile faltered. Yeah, that's Lauren. And you were at the beach that day? Ashley's tone wasn't accusatory, just bewildered. I didn't know it was serious, Stacy said quickly. Ashley swiped, showing her the side-by-side screenshots of my hospital picture and Stacy's phone-free day post. You were posting unplugged while she was calling you from recovery, Ashley said quietly. She literally says in the story she had no one. A coworker at the counter, Marcus, muttered, That's cold. You don't understand, Stacy snapped. I needed a break. My therapist said... I'm all for mental health, Ashley said, but heaving your sister's emergency calls go to voicemail doesn't seem like self-care. Stacy grabbed her coffee and left, but the damage was done. By lunch, everybody in the office had seen the post. At 2 p.m., her boss, Richard, called her into his office. I saw the article, he said, and the TikTok. She tried to explain, to spin it, to insist it was being blown out of proportion. He listened, hands steepled. Look, he said finally, what you do outside work is your business. But this raises questions for a leadership role. What kind of questions? About judgment, priorities, showing up when it matters. If you can't show up for your own family in a crisis. He didn't finish the sentence. Stacy, later that night, called me again, sobbing. Are you happy now? She demanded. He pulled my promotion. He said I'm not leadership material because of you. I was lying on my couch, an ice pack propped awkwardly against my ribs. Because of me? I repeated. You gave that interview. You let them say I wasn't there. I was alone, Stacy. That's a fact, not a smear campaign. You could defend me. Tell people it's not what it looks like. Isn't it? I asked. Because from where I was lying, hooked up to a chest tube, it looked exactly like me calling over and over while you chose not to look at your phone. This is so unfair, she choked out. You know what else was unfair? I said quietly. Calling my family 32 times while I couldn't breathe and realizing the only people who cared were on the hospital payroll. She went silent. I could hear her breathing shakily. I hate you, she whispered again. But there was less venom in it this time. More fear. No, I said. You hate that the internet treats you the way I've been treated my whole life, like you're only as good as how you show up. She hung up. 30 minutes later, it was Dad. Lauren, this needs to stop. I'm literally sitting on my couch, I said. I haven't posted a thing. You're letting people attack your sister. I'm letting the truth exist. You could come out and say it's exaggerated, that we're good parents, that this is being blown out of proportion. Are we having the same conversation? I asked. Because from my side, it sounds like you want me to lie to protect your image. Families support each other, he said sharply. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was either that or scream. Where was that energy when I was in the hospital? He hesitated. Where were you when I called you 9 times? I pressed. You said you had errands. I was at Home Depot, he said finally. My phone was in the truck. I didn't think... You didn't think your daughter who just had surgery might need you? I didn't think it was urgent, he said, and I could hear the shame under the defensiveness. By the time I checked the voicemails, it was hours later, and I didn't know what to say. So you said nothing, I finished. You're making this into something bigger than it needs to be. No, I said. It's finally exactly as big as it always was. The difference is that now other people can see it. I took the phone away from my ear and ended the call. The story kept spreading, completely indifferent to our private implosions. By Friday, it had 500,000 views. That TikTok with the ringing phone sound? Over 3 million. Drama accounts deconstructed Stacy's captions. Strangers psychoanalyzed my mother's book club, and opinion pieces popped up about the cost of curated self-care. For once, I wasn't the invisible one in my own story. For once, I didn't rush in to protect the people who hadn't protected me. And that, more than anything, terrified my family. 3 months passed, and the internet finally found a new scandal to chew on. But the aftershocks in my family were still spreading like cracks in old pavement. If anything, the silence between us had grown louder. On the surface, everything looked calmer. No more viral posts, no more TikToks dissecting my sister's flower crown at the beach, no more strangers tagging me with screenshots. But beneath that surface, the fractures were everywhere. Stacy no longer carved out space in the world the way she used to. The girl who once walked into every room like it was waiting for her, now stepped quietly and avoided eye contact. Ashley, her coworker, who later became something like a friend of mine, described it perfectly. She didn't get bullied, Ashley said. It was worse. People just stopped choosing her. Lunch breaks became solitary. Happy hours happened without her. Coworkers spoke to her only when necessary, their voices polite, professional, distant. You could feel the temperature change whenever she walked in, Ashley told me once. No one hated her. They just didn't trust her. That was the part that shattered Stacy the most. Not anger, not confrontation. Just doubt. She started eating lunch in her car, scrolling through her private Instagram, now stripped of half her old captions with comments disabled, watching her follower count bleed steadily downward. 1,000 unfollows. Then 2,000. Quiet, steady departures that she couldn't block or reason with. People left comments on archived beach posts. Self-care queen, until your sister needed you. This didn't age well. Imagine ignoring an emergency for a phone-free day. Screenshots circulated endlessly, reposted by influencer snark accounts, and family dynamics commentators who saw my story as content, not a collapse. After 3 months of being tolerated instead of admired, Stacy quit her job, packed her apartment into boxes, and moved to Denver for a marketing coordinator position. Smaller company, smaller salary, and a desperate hope for a clean slate. Mom called me crying the night Stacy left. Your sister is leaving because of all this, she said, her voice trembling. She wants to get away from the judgment, from the shame. Don't you feel guilty? I thought of the empty chair beside my hospital bed, the call log with 32 unanswered attempts, the chest tube that tore through me while my family went about their day. No, I said softly. I feel sorry it happened, but I don't feel guilty. How can you be so cold? She whispered. I'm not cold, I said. I'm just not pretending anymore. She hung up. I didn't call back. Weeks passed before I realized I was functioning, but not healing. My body felt stronger, but my chest tightened whenever the phone rang. The scar on my ribs didn't hurt as much as the thought of those unread messages. So I found a therapist, Caroline. Calm voice, warm eyes, a habit of letting silence stretch until it turned into honesty. On our first session, she asked me, what happened in the hospital? I told her everything. The surgery, the collapse, the 32 calls, the 14 messages from my mother that never came, the flurry of excuses that followed once the internet caught wind of the truth. When I finished, she didn't speak for a moment. Then she asked quietly, are you grieving? For what? For the version of your family you thought existed. Something inside me cracked, not loud, not dramatic, just a soft tear in a seam that had held too much tension for too long. Caroline was the first person to say the words out loud. You were the invisible one, she said. You learned to minimize your needs because they were never prioritized. It hurt in the way truth always does. Clean, sharp, undeniable. I spent weeks learning words that should have been taught in childhood but weren't. Boundaries, emotional labor, self-worth, parentification, erasure, conditional love. Caroline said something one day that I wrote down and taped to my fridge. Love without accountability is not love, it's convenience. I stared at that sentence every morning for months. When Thanksgiving approached, Mom called with manufactured cheer. So, you're coming home for Thanksgiving, right? It'll be a small group, just family. I told her the truth. I'm not going. Silence stretched so thin it buzzed. But it's Thanksgiving, family day. I'm starting new traditions, I said, with people who show up. There was hurt in her voice, then guilt, then weaponized sadness. Your empty chair will make everyone sad. Normally that line would have worked on me, but therapy had given me new footing, solid, grounded. You had 3 months to fill that chair, I said gently. You didn't. She didn't know what to say. I hung up, not out of anger, but out of clarity. I spent Thanksgiving with Jake and his girlfriend Emma. We ordered pizza, watched football, ate pie from a grocery store bakery. It was simple, ordinary, and it was the happiest holiday I'd had in years. No forced smiles, no tiptoeing around landmines, no pretending I wasn't hurt. Just peace. Christmas came. Mom tried again. Can't we move past this? She asked. It's family. We're supposed to forgive. What exactly am I forgiving? I asked. The fact that none of you showed up? The excuses after? Or the part where you cared more about public embarrassment than my actual fear? It was a misunderstanding. No, I said. It was a pattern. Her voice trembled. You're holding a grudge. No, I'm holding a boundary. That's the same thing. It's not, I said quietly. A boundary protects me. A grudge punishes you. I'm doing the first one. What do you want from us? She finally asked, defeated. Acknowledgement, I said. Responsibility, a real apology, and changes you don't resent making. That's asking too much. Then you're asking too much from me, I said. And I hung up, not sharply, just decisively. I sat in my apartment that night, lights dim, hot cocoa warming my hands. Christmas music drifted softly in the background. Snow fell outside in slow, lazy flakes. And for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't lonely. I wasn't waiting for someone to choose me. I wasn't anxiously checking my phone. I wasn't holding my breath to see if I mattered. I was enough. I was peaceful. I was free. The silence wasn't abandonment anymore. It was my boundary. And I breathed solely, fully without fear. 3 months into the new year, when winter had started to lose its bite and the world felt slightly softer around the edges, an email appeared in my inbox. Not a text, not a call, not a family group chat message drowned in emojis and forced cheer. An email. From Stacy. The subject line was simple. I owe you this. I stared at it for 5 full minutes before opening it. The message was 3 paragraphs long, longer than anything she'd sent me in years. There were no excuses, no hashtags, no self-care jargon, just honesty. The kind that feels unfamiliar from someone who used to coat her whole life in filters. She wrote, Lauren, I've been in therapy. My therapist suggested I write this, not because I expect forgiveness, but because I owe you honesty. What I did was wrong, cruel even. You were in danger. You were scared. And I was posting about unplugging and sunsets while ignoring the calls you placed with shaking hands. You deserve someone who showed up. I wasn't that person. I made your emergency about my comfort, then made the fallout about my reputation. I wasn't a sister. I wasn't even a decent human being in that moment. I am sorry, not because the internet punished me, but because I hurt you. You didn't deserve that. Stacy. I read it once, then again, then a third time, slower. Something in me wanted to melt. Another part wanted to harden. Trauma does that. It makes you suspicious of sincerity. At therapy, I showed Caroline the email. What does it make you feel? She asked. Conflicted, I said, and tired. Is the apology enough? Not by itself, I said. Words come easy when consequences have already hit. Caroline nodded. Then don't respond until your heart feels clear. Boundaries still apply, even when someone says they're sorry. So I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That was allowed. I forwarded the email to Jake with the message, thoughts. He called me instantly. She's been miserable, he said. Emma saw her LinkedIn. This is her 3rd job in Denver in a year. She's trying, Laura. I think she actually is. Trying to feel better, I said. Not trying to make things right. Sometimes those overlap, he said quietly. I didn't answer, because maybe he was right, maybe not. I didn't know that clarity yet. Weeks later, Dad asked to meet for coffee. Neutral territory. Out in public, where neither of us could retreat into old reflexes. He looked older, not from age, from weight, the emotional kind. We sat across from each other at a small wooden table. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Let's see how this goes before you thank me," I replied. He blew out a breath. "I need to tell you something about that day." He didn't look at me. He looked at the napkin dispenser. "I saw the calls," he said quietly. "I saw your voicemails. I listened to one of them, the one where you said you couldn't breathe." My stomach tightened. And I didn't call back," he said. "Not because I didn't care, because I didn't want to deal with it." He swallowed, hard. "I told myself it was probably nothing, that you were exaggerating, that it could wait until after errands. And by the time I realized it wasn't nothing, I was ashamed, and instead of fixing it, I made it worse." It was the first time any of them had said the word ashamed. I didn't speak for a moment. Then I said, "That's more honest than anything I've heard in a long time." "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "I don't deserve it." "Good," I said, "because I'm not ready." He nodded, eyes watery but steady. "What would help?" "Time," I said. "Consistency. Showing up even when it's inconvenient, and accepting that I might need distance." "I can do that," he said. For the first time in a long time, I believed him. A month later, I got an unexpected call from a Denver number. "Lauren Avery," a woman said. "This is Patricia Chen. I'm Stacy's manager. She asked me to reach out." I nearly dropped the phone. "Is she okay?" "She's fine," Patricia said. "But she wouldn't tell you this herself. Your sister has been changing. She shows up early. She stays late. She apologizes when she messes up. Not performatively, genuinely. She talks about you sometimes in a way that sounds like she's trying to grow, not justify." I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. After she hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. People can change. Some don't. Some won't. But some do. By summer, the scar on my ribs had faded into a thin white line, a whisper on my skin rather than a scream. The emotional scars, still tender, had started forming calluses in all the right places. Jake got engaged that year. Wedding in Colorado. October foliage. Mountain backdrop. I said yes to attending, partly for Jake, partly for me. I knew Stacy would be there. The night before the wedding, she found me in the hotel lobby. "Can we talk?" she asked. Her voice wasn't sharp or defensive. It was small, but steady. We stepped outside onto the patio. The mountain air was crisp and smelled like pine. "I'm not expecting forgiveness," she began, "but I wanted to say it to your face. I'm sorry. Not for what the internet did to me, for what I did to you." I looked at her, really looked. This wasn't the glowing, curated Stacy from Instagram. This was a person who'd been scraped down to her foundations. "I believe you," I said. Her eyes widened just slightly. "But I don't need your apology to move on," I continued. "I already did that work myself." She blinked fast, swallowing emotion. "I'd like us to try someday. Not like before. Something healthier. We're already in the same room without it hurting," I said. "That's a start." She gave a small, genuine smile. The first I'd seen on her in 2 years. The wedding was beautiful. I danced with Emma's grandmother. Jake kept hugging me like he was afraid I'd vanish. Dad found me during the reception, looking uncomfortable in a suit he clearly didn't enjoy wearing. "I'm proud of you," he said, "for making us work to be in your life." "I did it to protect myself," I said. "That's exactly why you should have done it." Later, he added, "Your mom wants to have dinner. Just us. No guilt. Whenever you're ready." "I'll think about it," I said. And I meant it. 3 months after the wedding, I finally had dinner with my parents. It was awkward, quiet, gentle, honest. They didn't guilt me. They didn't demand closeness. They didn't pretend nothing had happened. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. As winter returned, I found myself touching my scar sometimes, surprised at how faint it felt now, how little it defined me. I had survived my lung collapsing. I had survived being abandoned. I had survived being found by strangers, but ignored by family. And then I rebuilt myself from that truth. Being alone wasn't the same as being unloved. Being abandoned didn't mean I was unworthy. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant stopping the wound from bleeding into everything else I touched. And family. Family turned out to be the people who showed up, not the ones who said they would. That day in the hospital, I waited for someone to save me. But in the end, I saved myself.